Well, well, well. Hello. This is Donna Reiners, and I'm thinking about you. And I think it's been about a minute or two since I've talked with you. And I am wanting to know that you have been on my mind. And I just felt like some personal encouragement would be strengthening to you and probably strengthening to me at the same time. And so that's what this time together is all about. If there is something going on with you, I'd love to know about it. You're welcome to comment about it. Hopefully, I will see that you commented and be able to get back with you. And just know that you're alive on purpose. And I've made some recent discoveries about myself that you'd have thought I'd have known by now, but somehow, someway I didn't know. And I don't know how I didn't know. I must have been in some kind of denial. Have you ever been in denial about something? Have you ever thought about something and then thought, nah, and just dismissed it and gone on with your life? Well, I think that is how my life has been for the last 61 years. So I'm going to share a little bit about that with you, and I hope it encourages you in some way. So I realized recently that the word empath probably describes me very well. And honestly, I have ignored that description because as a person in the healing industry, it's very difficult for someone who is helping other people heal, helping other people transform, helping other people get to the root. It's difficult for us to come out of our own closets and share that we have issues. Many times it's because some will negate you being able to have issues. Some will say, well, if you have issues, you can't help me. Some will say, well, if you aren't free, then why would I come to you? And all those kind of judgmental positions. So there's a lot of us who still go through real life and have real problems and have real issues, but we continue in the work that we do to help other people. It isn't that we're not capable. It isn't that we're not able. It isn't that that what we have is going to pass on to you or what you have is going to pass on to us. It's that we go through things too, y'all. And so the word empath has always just sounded like something that I did not want to ever own up to. And yet I clear toxins and emotional issues from myself that I know came from other people pretty frequently. And the reason I'm pretty sure that those show up in my life, in my soul, in my body, is because I care so much. Maybe that means I'm crossing my own boundaries and I'm caring too much. I'm not real sure. I just know that I am figuring out life just like you are. And I want to continue helping people while I'm on the way to where I'm going and while I continue to help myself, right? But the word empath is interesting in that it has the connotation that you absorb other people's emotions. So I can be in a situation with someone where I am working with their emotions, helping them get free from a root that maybe has been the reason for their triggering for many, many years, that their body trauma gets removed. And yet somehow, somewhere in the middle of all that, I misplace my compassion and it turns into some kind of empathy. And then it's like it comes through into me instead of it not coming through into me. And that means for me, it's not healthy. Now, I have friends in the healing industry And they just have such strong intention. When one person has something they're dealing with, they just literally touch the other person, and that other person sees it just leave their body. It like goes through their body, out of their foot, and into the ground. I'm like, well, I want to learn how to do that. And I asked him that a few years ago. And somehow, some way along the way, I have not mastered it. Now, there are a lot of things I know I don't pick up on, but I think that there are times when something is just so strong that I let my guard down and I care in a way that is detrimental to me. So let me give you an example. I was on the phone with someone recently, and they were sharing with me their heart, and I could sense some grief. And then I met with them in person, and they shared with me that they had recently lost a child. They'd lost a child while the child was still in their womb. And they said that they don't share this with other people, that they're very private. This is a young couple that is already facing the grief of losing a precious one. The baby had some severe physical issues that included extreme brittle bones that would have made life extremely painful. But this mom, of course, misses the daughter she never got to really know. And my heart, though I've never had biological children, meaning I've not had a bowling ball come through my loins, even though I've not experienced that, my heart was just so entwined in her sharing her life, and my compassion was so strongly there. I know that I left with an emotion from her that I have to clear away, because when I don't, this is the effect. And maybe this will help you in your day-to-day journey. It's not like catching something like it's contagious, but when you come in agreement with someone else's emotional trauma and it settles inside of you, that trauma manifests in you in ways that maybe you won't even understand. But I noticed today I was very heavily grieved, and it was after my meeting with this young person who shared their deep pain. And I'm like, oh my goodness gracious. I was crying with them, sending intention toward them, praying for them, thinking about them, left thinking about them, and still thinking about them until I got a ding, 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 ding awakening to remember not to allow that emotion to come inside me. And now I know it's already resting here, so I'm going to remove it. I'm going to do what I know to do to take away anything from me that I came into agreement with so that it doesn't haunt me or torment me. Now, I meet some people that say, well, I don't want that emotion to go, because then they feel like they're honoring the person who shared with them this deep place. But how is it honoring that person? By leaving a toxic pain inside of you that has nothing to do with you. How does it honor that person to take on someone else's trauma and let it become your own eventually, so that you become pretty much possibly useless because of depression or despair, or feeling like you're ashamed or humiliated, or it actually can turn into physical pain as well? How does that honor that other person with you taking on their issues? It doesn't. And listen, it doesn't take it away from them. You know, when someone shares their life like that, they're sharing their pain, but it doesn't mean they're picking up their pain and giving it to you so that they don't have pain anymore. They're sharing their pain, like sharing a piece of fruit, or sharing a steak, or sharing silverware, or sharing a drink. But in this case, it's sharing pain that's now going to inflict you. So learning how not to receive those emotions is important. And then learning to Release those emotions is equally as important if you do take it on. So one of the ways that you can prevent yourself from taking on someone else's emotion, these are simple things like changing gateways. You can easily cross your hands across your chest, or take your arms and maybe wrap them around each other. You can also cross your legs. That helps to close gateways so that those emotions are not coming toward you when they're sharing them. Now, see, the thing is that we have our own polarity. We have a positive and a negative side. And when someone shares something that when we are able to close our gateway, meaning we're crossing our own polarity, it is less likely for that type of thing to come on you. So that's the possibility. Of course, when you have super strong intention and you're really zoned in, it probably wouldn't matter how strongly you closed your gateway. It might cross over anyway, which is what I found today when I was sharing with this young lady my heart and listening with compassion to her heart. That's one thing you can do. You can also visualize yourself completely enclosed with light, so that the light is also surrounding you, so that when someone shares with you something that is so potent and so over the top for your emotions to handle, that you can see it hitting that light and falling off. Kind of like I used to call, there's a passage in my favorite book, and it talks about the scaly skin of a crocodile and how an arrow would hit it but then just fall to the ground. It's like if you could institute boundaries around your physical body so that anything that comes your way hits that scaly skin and falls to the ground, that's going to help you. That does not stop you from being compassionate. It doesn't stop you from having mercy. Doesn't stop you from taking action. Doesn't stop you from giving a hoot. All it does is keep you safe so that you can have compassion, so that you can give a hoot. See? You moving into despair or depression is not wise. And it is something that nowadays psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors, for those that lean into the pharmaceutical drug companies, that's a moneymaker by having those pills that deal with depression and despair and the desire to not stay on the planet. Those are all pharmaceutical drugs. And so we don't want that if we can avoid it. If you're using them, hey, you've got to do what you got to do while you're on the way to where you're going. And sometimes you have short spans where you do things. Sometimes you're on something so long that you don't even think you could ever live without it, and you don't know what to do. And then you forget that you're living with something so long that you don't know how to live without it, because you're on it so long, it becomes your habit. It becomes, without you realizing it, your addiction. And maybe it's not even addictive physically, but mentally, if you've called yourself to entwine and entangle yourself with something that you believe is helping you mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, then it would be very difficult for you to let go of that. And it would be very easy for you to look at it and say, you know what, I'm addicted to that because I rely on it, because I have to have it. It can be that. It could even be, it could even be coffee that you just feel like you have to have. Why? Because it's like a comfort to you. It's like a comfort zone to you versus being something you just enjoy. Now it's come to something that's emotionally entangled with you because you look at it as comfort. I have to admit, I went through a season like that where I would go and get coffee daily because it was like comfort to me. You know, the word comfort means strength. So drinking coffee every day is not going to strengthen me, not going to strengthen my muscles, my bones, my mind, not one bit. But my mind was convinced that I needed that little trip out of my house, which would usually take me away for an hour or two. So maybe it was an escape for me. Maybe I was addicted to the escape it gave me, but not addicted to the actual coffee. I don't know. But it took me quite a bit to not have that anymore. And then I picked it up again recently because I've been adding cacao to my coconut milk and adding some collagen I got that I'm trying for a while, using for a while, and adding the coffee to it and with a little bit of almond creamer, and it's really tasty. It's like a fancy coffee drink. And so I've been using that on a daily basis, and I have to admit, now I'm using it even if it's noon. And I know better than to drink that when it's noon, because for me, the caffeine does have a tendency to wire me up later at night. So I'm just sharing with you, you can even be addicted to someone else's emotions. You can be addicted to that grief. You can be addicted to that pain. You can be addicted to remaining in grief, remaining in pain. And did you know, you don't, my family knows, but in a couple of days will be the 43rd anniversary of my mom's passing away. And she was my best friend, and she was the favored parent in our family. And when she passed away, when I was super young, it was devastating to us. So I'm cognizant that's coming around the corner. And also tomorrow is the birthday of someone I loved for 30 years before they passed away. They mentored me for 3 decades. They spent time with me. They loved me unconditionally. That's coming around the pathway. And then today was my opportunity to partner with grief and let it be a part of me. See, so these things, it's like they add up. They add up. So I know I'm going to have to stop and pause and breathe in and breathe out and just see darkness leave me, even if I don't feel anything, because I know me. I'm super compassionate. I care more than I should most of the time. And I'm going to need to cut that off before I hit something that just has open pathway to come in and grab a hold of me. So I want to encourage you to consider those things for your own life. Consider that for your own life. Where are you in agreement with something or someone where it's death and devastation for you? It doesn't mean you don't care for them. It doesn't mean you don't spend time with them. It doesn't mean that you're not walking out life with them. It just means you have to remember that in that space of compassion that you have, you also need to protect your own supernatural boundaries from allowing this unseen emotional world to entangle with you, and then you can't recognize you between you and someone else. That is a word. If you sometimes all of a sudden experience feeling like deeply in the blues, or so sad you're not sure how you got there, those are more than likely emotions that you came into agreement with, whether it be through a person you met, whether it be through a program you watched where you had great sympathy for the character. You know, your body doesn't know it's not real. Your body just feels the emotion that you're conveying or that you're agreeing with. So somehow, some way, I'm encouraging you in your life to pause, to breathe in and out, and to consider your pathway. Consider the thought road you're on. Consider what you're being mindful of, because sanity and insanity may sound like strong words, but there are times when people are driven to a place where they no longer even want to remain on the planet. That was one emotion at a time. Was it their emotion? Possibly. Was it the emotion they came entangled with or agreed with because they were already feeling like that? Possibly. Was it because they were feeling awesome, but then they agreed so heavily with someone else's destructive pattern or a devastated lifestyle or pain that they agreed so much so that it became theirs? Possibly. All these are possible scenarios. So what do? You breathe in and you breathe out. And you give yourself thoughtfulness toward what you're doing, where you're going, and what it means. If that means you have to get up early in the morning for a few minutes, detaching yourself away from communication, detaching yourself away from computers and phones, and just breathing in and breathing out long enough to see your own thought life, I highly recommend that. I highly recommend that you have breathing hygiene, breath hygiene. And we can't shift that blame. Can't shift blame to someone else that we don't have that. Can't shift blame to someone else that we find ourselves emotionally aggressive or in deep pain. It's not that. It's that we have to take responsibility for our own lives. And at 61 years old, I'm realizing that this empathy that I live in and that I deal with privately, because I don't usually come out and tell people have a depressive thought, or I'm feeling depressed, or I'm feeling like I'm in despair, or I'm heavily discouraged. Usually I just keep moving. Usually I continue to care about the people around me. Usually I continue to just let the folks around me that have issues, that I'm there for them. I just continue. Why? Because I don't know that it would help them or matter that I was going through something. All that would do would be mask their need of something. And normally the people around us don't need a long time. They just need to know that they're cared for. And maybe healers, and I've got quite a few healers I know that visit with me and listen to me, and that we exchange life together. Healers have a tendency to hide their own need to heal. We have a tendency to keep moving. I was thinking about, for those of you who have had a spiritual pathway, there's some men and women in the religious circle of many years back that moved in what would be known as supernatural and miraculous things. And many of them died young, like in their 30s and 40s. But why? Because they didn't care about their physical body. They did not stop to consider what was going on with them. Maybe those began with emotional entanglements. Maybe they felt driven to help humanity, and then they just put themselves in a space where they never dealt with their own issues, and then it becomes an issue. See, we wait and we wait and we wait until it becomes some big, huge issue, and then it's a crisis. Instead of little by little breathing in and breathing out, being mindful, being awake, listening not just to the body, but to the subconscious, listening to the thought patterns, paying attention to what is in front of us, paying attention to what's inside of us. And the reason we don't is because we are so addicted to electronics. We're so addicted to hearing and seeing and touching and feeling that we don't give ourselves the opportunity just to breathe in and out. And again, we can't say we don't have the opportunity, because we do. In every circumstance that we have, no matter how dire, how difficult, how it seems like it'd be easy to say, well, this is why I can't do this, and this is why I can't do that, and this is, even though we have those things inside of us, I have some of that inside of me, even though we have that, really, from the inside of us, the deepest core of inside of us, we know why we're here on the planet. We know what we came to do. And somewhere along the way, we know that we have the tools to pass through the season we're in to get to the next season that we're headed into, where we have assignments to help ourselves and to help humanity. And so I was thinking about you today, and I just wanted to share this with you, and I do hope that it encourages you in some way. I hope that you'll do some research also. Not everything is just cut and dried. Not everything is black and white. Not everything is left or right. Not everything is up or down. Not everything is this or that. Sometimes it's a little bit of everything. You know, when you look into the sky, it's not all one color blue. Sometimes it's multiple colored blues. When you look into the sky, you see all sorts of things. Instead of calling it gray, I'd rather call it blue. Multiple colors of blue. And there's multiple colors of gray as well. There's things can be gray with us. That's what I'm saying. It's not left or right. Sometimes a little bit of left and a little bit of the right. Sometimes it's your perspective, it's my perspective, and then what's the perception coming from others? What is the perception? What is this person's perception of what's being said? What is that person's perception of what's being done? I'm not saying that their perception is correct either. Listen, I don't ever want to be the behavior police, and I don't want to say, well, we don't have the space inside to feel the way we feel. I'm just saying if we're addicted to feeling the way we feel, we'll never get out of feeling what we feel, and we'll never be able to move forward in life. And those things that we think we want, those things that we think will make us happy, will never make us happy, because there we will be when we get to that place that we think will make us happy. We'll turn up there and we'll be there, and guess what will happen? There we will be in the middle of it. We will still be there. Because wherever I am, there I go. And wherever I go, there I am. And so all that's within me in my internal world is traveling with me. It's my internal world that gets to decide how I respond to the external world, whether it be your external world or someone else's external world or my own external world. We watched a movie recently that a doctor friend of ours recommended called Dark Matter. Listen, it's intense. If you don't like darkness, you don't want to watch it. And I'm not talking about evil. I'm just talking about, it's just not a lot of smiley, happy, jokey things. It's just, it's like this multi-dimensional universe where a person gets to live out their life in a different way. Like they'll live out their life this way, and they'll live out their life that way. And then they got what they wanted in this universe, but they didn't get what they wanted in this other universe, or they thought all these thoughts about how they were sad or unhappy, and then they go into this doorway and this pathway, and inside that pathway is all this sadness and all this darkness and all this unhappiness. Why? Because they brought that. They brought that sadness, they brought that darkness, they brought that unhappiness. Do we attract what we're thinking? When we attract what we're thinking, but yet we get to that spot and it's just not happy, is it because we expected it to be unhappy? Could it be that when we get to that place, wherever we go, there we are? What if we are the ones who shift the environment when we get there? What if it's only what we determined for it to be? I have a friend recently that was sharing with me that they were headed into a situation, and when they got in this situation, they just felt this presence and this, that was the most amazing experience they've ever had, and they just felt the presence of the supernatural, and they felt the presence of God, and they'd never done that before. And I said, well, have you considered that you felt that because you got there? Have you considered because that's who you are? Have you considered that that's what came forth? Now, this person has recently had some trauma work and had some things removed from them so that their eyesight is more clear, their hearing is more clear, their heart has more capacity, their compassion has more capacity, they have more clarity in their direction. But what I saw isn't that it was a beautiful place when they got there and that the power was there waiting for them. What I saw was the power was within them. When they got there, it opened up because they were the ones that were there. Because wherever they go, there they are. But what if wherever we go, in our negativity, in our desire to be negative, in our desire not to change, in our thought process that everything's going to turn out horrible, and we don't realize we're thinking that way, what if because of that, when we get to a situation, we feel like it's horrible, we feel like it's negative, and we feel like it's just not going to work? And maybe it's because that's what we expected. But what if you get there and it's really not that negative and it's not that dark, but because you expected it and your thought process was so entangled in it that when you got there, that's all you saw. You saw nothing else, even though even though it was not so. Even though the doors were open for you, even though that person opened the door for you and that other person opened the door for you and the elevator was working or whatever, what if the positivity was there for you, but you couldn't see it because you had such a negative perspective when you walked in the door, because you've had a negative perspective of yourself, or a negative perspective of the person with you, or a negative perspective of the condition that you're living in, or maybe you're facing some kind of sickness or ailment that has caused everything within you to give up, and you're disillusioned. And so wherever you turn, you see failure and you see disillusionment. Or maybe you're living in such a place of poverty that no matter what happens, you cannot break out of your poverty. Listen, I'm not saying this is you, but what if we began to visualize something more than poverty? What if we began to visualize the productivity? What if we allowed ourselves the time, 5 minutes a day, with the imagination to take on a clothing, to take on a mannerism, to take on a behavior, to take on an intention, to take on the person of who we really want to be, even though we don't feel like we're there yet. But what if we take it on as if we are there, and then when we get there, that's who we are? What if we attempted to do that? I'm asking you, do you want to go on a journey like that? Because that's what I want. I have some things I'm facing right now that to me seem insurmountable. And that's why I've been a little quiet the last few weeks. I've just been contemplating this insurmountable place that I've gotten myself into, that I put myself into. Nobody put me there but me. I said this, and this. I said yes to this, and this. And now I am compiled and overwhelmed with this, and this. That's where I'm at. Overwhelmed. I have some things with my health that are overwhelming. I have some things with business that are overwhelming. I have things regarding income that are overwhelming. I have some things with relationships that are overwhelming. And it seems got to a place where it was so insurmountable. I'm like, oh my goodness gracious. I had to breathe in and breathe out and breathe in and breathe out and breathe in and breathe out and remind myself that I am not overwhelmed, and to remind myself that I do not have to live as if I'm overwhelmed, even though everything within me feels completely overwhelmed. And I look at my life and I think, well, how can you feel overwhelmed? You have no reason to be overwhelmed. And I look at this person's life and I see, well, I see why they're overwhelmed. I look at this person's life and I'm like, doggone it, I see why they're overwhelmed. I look at this other person's life and I'm like, oh my goodness, I can see why they're overwhelmed. But I look at my life and I compare myself to those other situations. I say, well, I have no reason to be overwhelmed. Why can I be overwhelmed? I don't have permission to be overwhelmed. Well, the truth is that we have to stop and we have to remind ourselves that none of us have the permission to be overwhelmed. Why? Because we all have equal access to this place of peace. We all have equal access to the place to stop and breathe in and breathe out and remember who we are, remember what we're capable of, remember our supernatural ability to find the internal world of peace where the person of peace lives instead of this external world of chaos. And sometimes, listen, there is an internal world of chaos. There's an internal world of squirrel, hip, left, right, here, there, up, down, in, round. And some of those things are brain issues. Some of those things, it's like, oh my God, if my brain doesn't get rewired, I'm going to lose my freaking mind, right? And so in the middle of all that, we have to remember that our brain has plasticity in it. What does that mean? Our brain can change. There was a time on the planet when the medical people said there was no way that the brain could change. The medical people said, whatever you're at, that's it, that's the end of it, and you can't have anything more. But guess what? Over time, the quantum world has opened up, and guess what that means? That means we see more. We have technology that shows us that our brain can change. We have technology that shows us that the mind can change. We even have technology that proves that there's space inside of us where it's not even controlled by gravity. I mean, is that not mind-blowing? That there could be a space inside that's not controlled by gravity, even though we're on planet Earth where gravity is like the thing. So let's explore the internal world of possibility of remaining in peace. And I've been listening to some training, I've been listening to some teachings, because some of these courses are hard. And I'm realizing that there are so many things that we did not learn growing up. So many things that we did not learn because we were not taught these things. Our parents didn't know these things. Their parents didn't know these things. Their parents didn't know these things. And so if there was someone who knew it, it was probably several hundred years ago. And maybe it's because they didn't have a bunch of electronics that distracted them. They weren't working on 12 things at one time. They got up, they worked on one thing, and they went home, and that was the end of it. Maybe not have been as interesting as we have it now, but because they had less distractions, perhaps they had more peace. I don't know. So I'm encouraging you and inviting you, if you're not already in the journey of finding peace, finding the space inside where there are solutions for long-term problems, finding answers for things that are complicated down the road, for listening and seeing that there are doorways that are open, there are doorways that are available, that we can choose before it even comes to us. Right? We can choose before it even comes to us. Let's attempt to take the road that might seem less traveled inside of us, so that when we get to where we're going, we will have already been there, because we've been there through our intention of finding peace, of knowing peace, of becoming a solution, of becoming an answer, of having an intention of life so strong that the circumstances and the world changing and all these things that are happening do not topple us over, do not cause our boat to sink, do not cause the balance to go out, but we can remain in balance. And I believe that it comes and it starts with breathing in and breathing out. What happened when we were born? When we took our first breath, that breath that came in the world, and where we breathed in and we breathed out, let's return to the trust we had when we were first born, that the right we have to breathe in and the right we have to breathe out. What if that is our foundation of our life? What if that is our foundational core, our core foundation to our internal private world? And what if it comes with 60 seconds a day, to 2 minutes a day, to 3 minutes a day, to 4 minutes a day? What if you spend 1 minute a day for 6 months? It's more quiet than you have now. What if you're able to increase it to 2 minutes a day? Don't jump into the world and do an hour a day and then say, I can't do this, and don't do anything the next day. Or if you spend 1 day a week in 10 hours apiece, and there's nobody around you and there's nothing going on, that's not the peace. That won't be your peace. The peace is found in the daily habitation, the daily visitation to the internal world, where we have an invitation to breathe in and to breathe out, and to breathe in and to breathe out. And there are many trainers in breath work, there's many trainers in meditation, and their voices are very methodical, and their voices are very it's almost like a trance-like state. I am not that trainer. We are breathing in and we're breathing out, and it is noisy inside and it can be noisy outside. And so finding who you are in the midst of distraction, finding peace inside you in the midst of the world of distraction, that's what you have to do. That's what I have to do. And the other thing I want to share in the context of breath is that I'm confident that our health depends on it, that breathing in and breathing out will bring nothing but good, that if we can breathe in this goodness, this oxygen, and breathe out with intention things inside of us that we know are complicating our world, if we can do that on a regular basis with our imagination, with our intention, shoot, you can take a piece of paper and write all sorts of things on it that you find are darkness and cut it up with your scissors. And it can have strong intention, and it can feel like that on the inside of you. It can be a destruction of destruction that you can implement for yourself so you can find peace. These are keys, and these are cues for us to have a better health in front of us. Anyway, I bless you. This is Donna Reiners. I was thinking about you. I hope that you are encouraged and strengthened and can find a bold confidence in the new day. And I invite you to join me in this journey of breathing in and breathing out. You can contact me privately regarding breathing in and breathing out. I have been considering holding some space for that with others. And if that's something that would interest you, then I call you to that action and you let me know. And we can do that ever so often together, because isn't it wonderful when you have someone with you that wants to do the same thing with you, and that is find a true place of internal health, because is not our internal health our true wealth? I bless you. This is Donna, and I just release love to you. Until soon. Bye-bye.